Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports, coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the number one network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the number one sports show in the universe, according to Big C. And them good old boys down south, I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond, in London, England, as well as Paris, France. Of course, you good old boys in Canada, we love you in Africa, the Big C tribe. But there's no one we love more than the good old boys down south, in the land of the free and the home of the brave, on a beautiful November the 29th, 2019, Grande Deportes. Big C, how's it going for you good old boys down south?
Well, Charlton, it's day one of Thanksgiving leftovers, and I had a whole lot of leftovers again today, but, there's a whole lot of people with hangovers from Turkey Day playing football and basketball.
Yep, they really are, Big C, and I think I'm one of them. I just love that Thanksgiving is always a good time of year. Don't celebrate it, but it's all fair and love and war. I want to say so much to be grateful for. Really appreciate being able to come on a beautiful Friday after Thanksgiving. Today's show is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of Cadillac Escalade, the Standard. And when you go by and test drive yours, just at Charlton and Big C, as well as the fleet Cadillac cars. So everybody knows that Thanksgiving, it really is being grateful. And I want to make sure we give out our National Suicide Hotline for military vets. I know POTUS is across the pond, and he's at Air Force bases and giving his gratitude for our troops. And whether it's grandstanding or not, it's always nice to pay thanks. We do want to give out 800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255. Or you can text 838-255. That's 838-255 for all of our military veterans and civilians who simply need some help. Big C, your thoughts?
It is, Charlton, and so many people out there need help, and they don't know how to reach out and don't even know where to reach out to. The National Suicide Prevention Hotline number, Charlton, is always a segue for people who need someone to talk to, who needs help, hopefully stem them away from this horrific disease called suicide. But most of all, I want to give out a shout-out to Fox Sports yesterday.
Yeah.
Fox Sports did a segment with San Francisco 49er defensive tackle Solomon Thomas. Solomon Thomas lost his sister to this horrific disease called suicide a couple of years ago, Charlton. And for him to be able to speak about this on the national stage, national spotlight, to have the voice of an NFL player to come out and speak to people about how horrific this is and how much this hurts people. His sister was an athlete down at Arkansas. She was a volleyball player. She was violently sexually assaulted down there, and nothing happened to her assailants. And she got to a point of depression, didn't know where to go to, Charlton, and ultimately took her own life through suicide.
Wow.
This is something because people don't want to believe women when they say that they've been assaulted, that men always have a right, that, it was consensual. As long as he uses that excuse, it's okay in society because they're normally policed by men, Charlton.
Yeah.
But our veterans go through this also in the military service. Many of our veteran women in the military have gone through this, Charlton, where they've been sexually assaulted and no one wants to believe them because they're going against the men and they're going against their own fraternity.
Yeah.
And many of them, Charlton, have led to suicide, unfortunately, and shortened their lives. But this is a number, Charlton, that people can call and not be judged on. And we got to find a way to stem suicide in this country, Charlton. I know the National Suicide Prevention Hotline number is there, Charlton. But we have to talk more of a culture about our problems and share and let it be known. And don't say when somebody comes and says, I've been assaulted by somebody, say it's just boys being boys. It's not. It's wrong.
Yep.
And so they need to be incarcerated for doing these things. And the National Suicide Prevention Hotline number is there to listen to you if somebody else won't.
That's very well said. 800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255. Or you can text 838-255. That's 838-255. I wanted to just mention something. When I started broadcasting, I actually interned for a radio station in Northern California, and Rush Limbaugh was at that radio station. And I just heard over the weekend that he was defending some behavior and said that he didn't know that he was on tape. That's why he said those things. You can't really take it serious. And a lot of women, they hear that same garbage when they come forward, and many of them don't come forward because even people like Rush Limbaugh will defend anyone, and people know who the person was when he said grab them by the private parts and you get away with it. But to hear men, especially someone gross like Rush Limbaugh, I mean someone who looks very unappealing, to have an attitude of misogyny against women, to me, it just doesn't make any sense. I always want to stand up for the rights of people if they think they need someone to stand up for them. I do want to say also, this beautiful Thanksgiving dinner, really appreciate that, being together with family and friends. Big C, how much food did you eat after all, Big C?
Well, I ate enough food, Charlton, and it put me to sleep. That's how bad it was. I just got to a point that I just leaned back in my lazy boy, and it was all over. My eyes closed and my snoring started at that. The kids said, hey, just leave him alone. And eventually, I woke up, and they said, why were you asleep? I just said, well, the food was so good it did that to me.
Yeah, I had the same thing. People were asking me, why do I fall asleep, after I eat dinner? I'm like, why not fall asleep? Because little kids will tell you the truth. They'll say, why do you lay down and sleep after you ate dinner? Shouldn't you be staying awake, Big C? Why don't they understand, Big C, your thoughts?
Well, they did the same things when they were children. Yep. And as we get older, it's something we do. We revert back to our infancy in many ways. And, after a good meal, you just want to relax.
You just want to relax. Very good. Had a lot of Yardbird. Did try some deep fried turkey that was good. Obviously, the ham. Can't get over how good I think my mom makes the best. Everybody has their own opinion about what's good, but it's a cranberry relish, and it's so much where you put in the cranberries, the apples, the whole orange peel, and it's all blended together, and it's like a superfood, and it makes you feel so good. But I've never found something that good in the stores. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, a lot of people have these homemade recipes, Charlton, that you don't find in stores, that they pass down through generations and keep families bonded. It's always served at special times of the year. Yeah,
it was really good. So appreciate all the good food and eating and family time getting together over the holidays. It's always great to do that for 2019 and expecting more for 2020. A lot of good things. Big C, I want to get into Big C's Friday Night Lights on this Thanksgiving Day. Thanksgiving was yesterday, but every day really is Thanksgiving, but really appreciate how it comes together. There's a lot of high school football programs all over the country. They're in the playoffs now, so a lot of kids have already played their final high school football game, and for many, they won't go on to college, and they'll never play in a team atmosphere again, so they really have to appreciate what they had. I want to go a little bit further on our schedule. Of course, it seems like every year the number one team is Lauderdale Santa Ana, at least the last 3 years, out of Southern California. Number 2, St. Thomas Aquinas, out of Fort Lauderdale, Florida, followed by number 3, Duncanville, Texas. Number 4, St. John Bosco, Bellflower, California. Number 5, St. Francis Academy, Baltimore, Maryland. Now, I know those kids, Big C, they had a nice Thanksgiving too, but now they got to play football playoff games tonight, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, that's all across the country, Charlton, where they're having the high school playoff games, and, they're trying to get these state and sectional titles underway, Charlton, and, great celebration for many young men across the country.
Very well said. St. Louis is number 6 of Honolulu, Hawaii. Number 7, Katy of Texas. Number 8, De La Salle, Concord, California. Number 9, IMG Academy out of Bradenton, Florida, followed by number 10, Chandler, Arizona. But I want to go a bit further also. Number 11 is Male High School of Louisville, Kentucky, followed by number 12, Mentor out of Ohio. Number 13, North Shore out of Galena Park, Texas. Number 14, Carroll out of South Lake, Texas, Big C. And then number 15, Archbishop Rumel out of Moultrie, Louisiana. There's just so many programs that do it right. And unlike the college level, on the high school level, the number 14 actually has a loss. That was St. John Bosco. But they lost to number 1 Mater Dei. If you go past them, a school named St. Francis out of Maryland lost. They're 11-1. Their only loss was to Mater Dei. So when you pass those schools, you got to get to number 8 De La Salle. They have 1 loss. That was to number 2 St. Thomas Aquinas. I want the college programs played number 1 versus number 5. It seems like they all do this now on the high school level. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, really, with Charlton, when you look at high school polling, far as who's number 1, who's number 2, even who's number 10. That's selective because they don't play the type of schools that when you look at college programs, what they play week in and week out. I mean, it's a regional thing. It's about who wants to say this most popular. And then when you look at these preparatory schools, Charlton, they have a disadvantage towards, well, the smaller schools have a disadvantage towards them. Because they don't get to know, when you look at this country who have less than a population of 1,000, you'll find the longest winning streak in the country. There's a high school in Minneapolis who has the longest winning streak in the country. It's 68 plus games, Charlton, that they don't get ranked in the nation's top 10 teams.
Yep, that's true too. So I just appreciate that a lot of kids, this is their time to be what they want to be. And at the high school level, you do it with a lot of friends. Many kids, when they go to college, is not going to be in that same city where they played a high school football. So just wish them all the best, and as they pursue their section and state championships. I want to just pay a bit of homage to the HBC football programs of 2019. Not necessarily going into who beat who, but just acknowledging a couple of programs, because I know they don't get the same type of publicity when you go and deal with teams from the MEAC and the SWAC Big C. But just programs, Alabama A&M, really talked about them throughout the year. Corn State, Benedict College, Central State, Delaware State, Fayetteville State, Grambling State, Jacksonville State, Big C, Mississippi Valley State, North Carolina A&T, Purdue A&M, and I want to finish up with Tuskegee, because Tuskegee University is one of the more prestigious universities that had there was a Tuskegee Institute where they had a military crew, and they had never lost a squadron in a fight. And I know they had 400 men were ejected of syphilis by our country, by United States, and to see how they responded to treatments. So there's so many schools that have done great, but they've also been guinea pigs also, and that breaks my heart, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, that was a time in America when we had segregation and racism was very rampant, and people did not know what they were being put under, Charlton, during that time. And unfortunately, our government took advantage of those less knowledgeable during those days, and they still do it somewhat these days, but it just lets you know the divide that we've always had in this country.
Yeah, so I just wish everybody nothing but the best, and how, college is where you go to learn, and you can realize some of the sins of our country that you can always forward and do better. Big C, if you look at college football today, I know they have the Apple Cup where Washington is playing Washington State. I don't like to give out scores because sometimes people go ahead and do their own scoring, but it's one of the most beautiful environments of college football. Puget Sound, it's right there on the water on the West Coast, but then you have snow right above. I mean, Washington's at sea level, but then the snow comes down so close to the water. It's amazing how that is such a beautiful environment, and even the announcers are saying how gorgeous that view was. Have you ever been up to that part of the country, Big C? It's just amazing. Your thoughts?
Oh, yeah. I've spent a lot of time up in the Northwest, Charlton, throughout my travels everywhere. I mean, it's a beautiful backdrop sitting right there. The stadium overlooks the bay right there, and, just a beautiful backdrop. But you think about these two teams representing the Pac-12 and the Apple Cup today. Last year at this time, Charlton, that game meant representation into the Pac-12 championship, where both teams came into that game with 10 victories.
Yeah.
Today, both of these teams came in with mediocre records of 6-5. So when you think about a conference staying dominant and keeping the best on top, Charlton, and you talk about notoriety in the Pac-12, getting a team that conference more notoriety out there. And if you're playing in your conference championship one game and you're the best in the conference, and the next year you're in the middle of the pack, Charlton, that doesn't bode well for recruiting.
Yep. Well, if they can show that stadium more often, it's a really great place for college football. I want to also go across the country in Virginia and Virginia Tech. Well, one more thing on Washington and also Washington State. This is their 112th game. Apple Cup used to be called the Governor's Cup, but 112 years they've been doing their thing. As we go across the country to Virginia Tech. I know Virginia Tech has owned that series of late, but this might be the year that Virginia comes through, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, they've owned it for a long time. Matter of fact, that's 15 consecutive victories against the University of Virginia, but the University of Virginia changed that today, Charlton, and they stopped that 15-game slide against Virginia Tech, and now they will be facing the dominant Clemson Tigers in the ACC championship game, Charlton, and they're going to have to hold their breath and have a long stride and a short memory against that offense against Clemson.
Well, congratulations and welcome to Clemson, Big C. Also had Arkansas playing Missouri, and Nebraska fell. They had a chance to get another win, but they most likely going to have a losing season and not get the chance to go to a bowl game. Really not sad, but when you see these programs like in Nebraska that used to always be on top, they thought that Scott Frost would bring them back to prominence. Got off to a strong start, but they just finished where they were beaten up by so many programs. But it is great to see college football all over this great country. I want to get into Saturday's games. today to me feels like Saturday. I thought, is it Saturday or is it Friday? It is Friday, but it feels like a Saturday. If we look at number 1, Ohio State, Big C, the Buckeyes, they take on number 13, Michigan. That's a 12 p.m. kickoff Saturday on Fox Sports. They won't have as much tryptophan in their system, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, they won't have the L-tryptophan in their system, Charlton. They will both be jacked. This game is very crucial for both teams. Even though Harbaugh has never beaten Ohio State in his previous tries, Charlton, this is the best offense that he's ever had facing Ohio State, and really the first opportunity he had to make it to the Big 12 championship game. Ohio State wants to stay on task. They want to remain undefeated, because if they remain undefeated, they have a cakewalk, they think, in the Big 12 championship game. And, I mean, every year they found a reason to have a hiccup.
Right.
This is the first time getting into this game with Michigan that they've gone into this game without a loss, a chance for their perfect regular season.
Yeah, and I don't think they'll have a hiccup this time. I think Urban Meyer was a little bit nicer to his coaching brethren. This new regime doesn't really care, Big C. Number 2, LSU, the Tigers. They're like a ping pong. They go up and down. They haven't lost in the field, but the voters, depending on what side of the bed they wake up on, they'll put them 1 or 2. And if you're the state of Texas, now I know Texas had a good game today against Texas Tech, but there's something about that staple of a state for high school, not high school football, of course, and then college football. If Texas A&M wanted to put Texas on the map, then they would find a way to win this game. They played pretty solid over the years, but they keep coming up short. I don't think they have a chance against LSU, Big C, but it is a 7 o'clock kickoff Saturday night, ESPN, and give me your feelings on that game, Big C, your thoughts.
Well, as you look at Texas A&M on the season, Charlton, they have 4 losses. All 4 of those losses came against top 10 teams. So you think about the program. They're not going out there, skipping around trying to play cupcake schedule. Jimbo Fisher has a real tough schedule there at Texas A&M. Do they have enough to beat LSU?
No.
I'm not quite so sure about that, Charlton. They struggled down at Georgia, and Georgia has no passing attack. Joe Burrow is the second leading yardage passer in the country at quarterback, second leading touchdown thrower. They have 2 1,000-yard receivers and a 1,000-yard running back. Pretty much so. LSU has a damn good team.
Yeah, they're pretty good. Also good, number 3, Clemson. Clemson hasn't lost it since 2017. And some they're saying, we're not number 1. I don't understand it. They're at South Carolina. That's a 12 o'clock kickoff on Saturday on ESPN. And it really may be just punching practice. But Clemson also, they came close to falling last year at home to Syracuse. And it seems like every year they also have that game. I don't think it's going to happen with South Carolina, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Clemson's ranked number 3 in the country. If you make the bowl playoffs, 1, 2, 3, or 4, does it really make a difference? Because you have to win 2 games to win the championship. And you're going to have to beat another team that's ranked in the top 4, Charlton.
Yep.
And so Clemson has to be very comfortable about where they are because they get no respect. And for Dabo Swinney to use that as a motivational tool for his team, I think it's great fire that he can go in with. It's like, look, everyone has us as a nobody. They say we've beaten nobody, even though you beat everybody that's on your schedule.
Yeah.
That's what college football comes down to. And all the prognosticators, even us, who sit up and say, well, this team is better than that team,
right,
and this team should be here, and this conference should have that. Doesn't make a difference. The game is played on the field with the players. The players make the difference. Coaches make all the money. Players get paid under the table. But it comes down to players being productive between the hash marks.
Yeah.
And if you go out there and kick somebody's butt on Saturday, it takes care of itself.
It does take care of itself, Big C. Number 4, Georgia at number 4. Actually, number 4, Georgia at Georgia Tech. That's a 12 p.m. to kick off Saturday on ABC Sports. And Georgia Tech changed their whole offensive philosophy. It may take them 2 years to get back on track when they used to run the wishbone. Now they're the pro set, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, they had a big win last week, Georgia Tech did. I mean, and so you never know who's going to rise up. And when you have this interstate rivalry between Georgia and Georgia Tech, I think these 2 campuses are about 100 miles apart.
Yeah.
But, 2 heritage universities within the state of Georgia. And as you say, this is rival week. It's just as big as the Ohio State-Michigan game, to looking at what Georgia and Georgia Tech are doing to each other.
Yeah, it's amazing. Two great programs down in the South. Big C, also the biggest game arguably on college football. I know people say Michigan and Ohio State, but in order to be a big rival, both teams have to kind of split 50-50 or 60-40, so you don't find that there. I'm going to go number 5, Alabama, at number 15, Auburn. It's a 3:30 kickoff East Coast time, Saturday on CBS Sports. This is just it's an environment that I guess only the South could understand. What's the symbolism of throwing toilet paper in your neighbor's trees, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, you're letting you know you're going to roll tide on it, Charlton. You're going to clean house. But when you think about the Iron Bowl down that's going to be played in Auburn this year, Charlton, years ago that game used to be played in Birmingham.
Yeah.
At the halfway point between the two universities, Charlton. But now, they trade campuses on it, which is still a great environment. Yeah. And you think about, here's Alabama, with a tough schedule, and everybody saying, well, they're not the same team without Tua. Well, Alabama is a plug-and-play offense. Yeah. It does not make a difference who you put in, whether it's a receiver, whether it's a running back, whether it's a quarterback, whether it's a lineman. Alabama is full of 5-star recruits. It has the number 1 5-star recruit class in the country, year in and year out. And Saban has built a factory there. Yep. Mac Jones will step onto the stage, and you got to realize in Mac Jones' 2 starts, each one of those starts, he has thrown 3 touchdown passes and in excess of 275 yards and no touchdown. Yeah. So this offense will click. They have probably the best receiving core triplets in college football. Auburn, I think, is over their head with Bo Nix, even though he's played an entire season. Yeah. I believe as a team ranked number 12 in the country. But he's just not the thrower that you need to keep pace with Alabama. If Alabama gets up a couple of scores on you, they're not going to take their foot off your throat. Not the throttle off your throat. They're going to try to choke you out, and that's what Alabama's going to do to Auburn.
Yeah, like an MMA fight, Big C. And then also you have Utah playing against Colorado, and Utah's number 6 in the country. Colorado's not ranked. It's a 7:30 kickoff East Coast time, Saturday on ABC Sports. And again, Colorado's playing for a chance to win the Pac-12 South. And also, if they win the Pac-12 championship, Oregon's already in. They're looking for a Rose Bowl berth. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, the thing about it, when you look at what's happening here at Utah being at number 6, they have a horrific loss early in the season against USC. In the Rose Bowl, USC was in the Coliseum. USC wasn't even ranked, and they gave up that loss. And if you compare one-loss teams to Alabama, they lost to the number 1 team in the country in a shootout, at their house. So that's a big difference. Even though Georgia's ranked ahead of Alabama, they lost at home also to Clemson. Yeah. They're looking at the strength of schedule that all these teams play. Utah still has 2 tough games to play. They're going to have to play Colorado. Then they got to turn around and play in the Pac-12 championship against the Oregon Ducks, who are going to be steaming. They might have lost a few feathers down there at Arizona State on that pitchfork. So they're going to come out, and they're not going to want Utah to get into the college football playoffs, even though it would benefit the conference.
Yeah, it would really help the conference, but I don't care if people don't want to help their conference over their own pride. See, number 7, Oklahoma. If we're not for that loss against Kansas State, this team, Oklahoma, they're ranked number 7 in the country. They've been cruising all season except for that loss at Kansas State. They're at number 21, Oklahoma State. It's an 8 p.m. kickoff setting on Fox Sports. And this is the game of the year for Oklahoma State, not so much Oklahoma. And that makes it scary because they're in Stillwater, Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Oklahoma struggled in their last game. They just barely squeaked by TCU in that victory, Charlton. And Jalen Hurts probably had his worst game of the season. He rushed for 176 yards. He threw for 154 yards. You can't do that if you want to go out to Stillwater and win that game. They have the nation's top rusher in Chuba Hubbard. And you know at times that Oklahoma defense can be like a sieve. Everything just seeps through it. It's like putting tissue paper that you were talking about earlier, single ply up in front of a truck and say, hey, you can't come through. Chuba Hubbard will have a field day against this Oklahoma defense. Jalen Hurts is going to have to go out a Heisman-worthy performance in this game if Oklahoma expects to win.
Yeah, that's very true. And I squirm a little bit when I see recycled toilet paper. Big C, I don't know who's doing the recycling of toilet paper, but now I understand as I read more, it's about recycled paper. But they should say recycled paper, not recycled toilet paper. Or am I naive, Big C? Which one is it?
Well, Charlton, that would be a tough scenario, recycled toilet paper, because who's recycling?
Who's doing that job? It's some dirty job, but somebody had to do it. And then Minnesota, number 8, they're versus number 12, Wisconsin. That's a 3:30 kickoff Saturday on ABC Sports. Number 9, Baylor at Kansas is 3:30 kickoff. Actually, on Saturday, ABC Sports. And you think about Baylor. This is a team that was rolling all year long, and they had a big lead on Oklahoma. And Oklahoma came back and won that game. Of course, Jalen Hurts was a star in that game, too. That's another team that has to be kicking themselves. But it's amazing. You can have one loss on the season. Minnesota has one loss. Baylor has one loss. Oklahoma has one loss. Utah has one loss. And you have Alabama with one loss. Have you ever seen so many quality teams with one loss? They're knocked out of the college football playoffs. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, they're not all knocked off. I tell you the most ironic scenario that can occur. Minnesota has Wisconsin this week. Minnesota takes care of Wisconsin. The following week, they have Ohio State in the Big 10 championship game.
Yeah.
If they beat Ohio State, Charlton, they would leapfrog everyone in front of them and be put into the college football playoff just on the strength of knocking off Ohio State, which would be number 1 and number 2 in the country when they play them for the Big 10 championship. They would leapfrog Alabama. They would leapfrog Utah. They would leapfrog Oklahoma because of who they would have to play in their conference championship game.
Isn't that amazing? And then this Penn State sitting with one loss, actually 2 losses now. They're at number 10 playing Rutgers. That game is Saturday, 3:30 p.m. on the Big Ten Network. A game that used to matter. I remember waking up as a young boy watching number 11 Florida. They're going to be at Florida State. That's a 7:30 kickoff Saturday on the SEC Network. That used to be a game that mattered so much, not so much lately in the last couple of years. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, no, it doesn't, Charlton. But, you think about how much it matters to the players and the alumni. Record is a lot of times you can just toss it out the window because of what it means and the legacy that it has built over time. And that's the reason why we have this rivalry week, the last week of college. And I recall when I was in college and we had that rivalry week, the last weekend that you played the interstate rival, Charlton, is something that you just hated each other, even though you never saw each other at any point because of the distance between the universities. But just the alumni and the talk and what it meant as far as the rest of your life to go out and say, we've beat these guys.
Yeah.
And that's all you want to do. You can have an 0-11 record, Charlton, going into that game.
Yeah.
But if you win that game makes your season, and most of the time makes your life.
It makes it, and it also keeps people's job. If you're 0-11, might be on the hot seat unless you win that game. And just a couple of other big rivals I'll mention them before we get into the Big C timeout. We have number 14, Oregon. They're playing Oregon State. That's a 4 p.m. kickoff Saturday on the Pac-12 Network. Number 16, Notre Dame, is at Stanford, which has had maybe the worst year they've had under David Shaw. That's a 4 p.m. kickoff Saturday on Fox Sports. And then I'll mention, Southern Cal has the week off. But then you have, because these games have already happened, Nebraska and Iowa play close. Number 7, Iowa kicked a field goal to pull out that win. Number 18, Memphis, with a 34-24 win over number 19, Cincinnati. And then Boise State, they're the pride of the West Coast because every year they're going to be at least competing for their conference championship in the Big West, Big C, actually the Mountain now, and they do it every year with the number 20 in the country now, a 31-24 win over Colorado State. Before we go to the Big C timeout, how is Boise able to stay at the top of the mountain? Is this been that way the last 2 decades, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, they get players and they develop players. Boise State reminds me of what Nebraska used to be. Is that you took all this homegrown talent, Charlton, and you cultivated it, just like a field of corn, like in Nebraska.
Yeah.
And you let it develop, and you make it come in and you play to your style of football. You don't try to take a player and adjust to his needs, Charlton. When you come to Boise, you have to have a certain attitude.
Yeah.
And that's what they developed when they had Dan Hawkins was the coach out there, then
That's
Chris
right.
Peterson was the coach, and now the coach that they have, Charlton. It's just a Boise mentality.
Yeah.
And they used to have that mantra, we'll play anybody, any place, at any time. Boise got so good, the teams on the West Coast did not want to play Boise. Every time they played a Pac-12 team, they knocked them off, Charlton, whether it was Oregon, whether it was Washington, Oregon State. They beat up them.
Yeah.
And so you couldn't get a lot of Pac-12 teams who want to play Boise.
Yeah, and that seems to be the way all over the country, too. So that's a great program that's done it well, not a lot of distractions. We'll take what's called the Big C timeout, also known as the Big C pause. We'll come back off some of that tryptophan, Big C, as we'll talk about some NFL football and what happened on Turkey Day. Big C, your thoughts? All right. right, we are back from the Big C Timeout, also known as the Big C Pause. And you can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, all over the universe on the #1 podcast network in the universe, iHeartRadio podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Spreaker.com. The apps that I really love are by Google and Alexa. Just say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You'll hear from our sponsors. You'll hear welcome to the show. I will introduce C as the Mystic. He will do his thing, and I really appreciate the way things are going with Big C Sports. You can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity Comcast Television, launching on Roku TV, Apple TV, Fire TV, and a lot of smart TVs all over the universe. Big C, I know when you have so much football on Turkey Day, NFL football is amazing. The Lions always there, but the Bears jumped on them yesterday 24-20, and I just want to get your thoughts. It's almost, do we really need to have Detroit representing Turkey Day? You're always putting on a team that doesn't have playoff aspirations. It's just they're there because they've been there. But do you think it's a game we should and get some other cities a chance? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, it's tradition. You know, just like so many things that we run across in life, there's tradition. Thanksgiving is tradition. Detroit Lions started this tradition of Turkey Day football, Charlton. So I think it should always stay there. You know, no team is competitive every year. Then who do you decide who's going to be the competitive team when it comes down to that? And Detroit was very competitive in the game yesterday, Charlton. Mr. Trubisky had an outstanding day, his best day this year as a quarterback.
Yeah.
But when I look at what Detroit did in this thriller of a contest, Charlton, they didn't back down from this. You know, everybody thought that Detroit, because they were down to their third string, undrafted rookie quarterback, David Bloom, out of Purdue.
Yeah.
You got to realize that the big game that Purdue played last year, they knocked off Ohio State.
Yeah.
And Ohio State was undefeated and headed towards the college football playoff. But David Bloom knocked them off on a blowout, scored 52 points against Ohio State. And he almost did the same thing against the Chicago Bears yesterday, Charlton. It wasn't because of his effort that Detroit came up short. Chicago just woke up at the right time. They've been on a 3-game winning streak, and Trubisky's playing some of the best football of his pro career.
Yeah, I mean, it's always, they're always there. It's just, I guess it's because tradition matters. That's why they'll keep them there. I want to go to the biggest game on Turkey Day, Big C. The Buffalo Bills rolled into Dallas, and they came out with a win, 26-15 over the Cowboys. And the Cowboys are now, they're still in the lead in the NFC East. And we know that the Eagles have a game coming up against Miami, and people are assuming that Miami won't show up. The Eagles got to show me first, Big C, that they can score more than 2 touchdowns in a game. And they haven't done that lately against the Patriots and also against the Cowboys. So just give me your feeling on the Cowboys and the Bills game. I know the Cowboys were favored, but the Bills won by double digits, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, the Philadelphia Eagles are going to win the NFC East. The Dallas Cowboys have not beat a team all year long with a winning record. And as I said going into that game, the Dallas Cowboy defense is pathetic. And they were pathetic against the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah.
They could do nothing against Josh Allen this game. There was one time he sat in the pocket. I thought he had ordered a beer, Charles, because he was sitting there waiting in line, looked like he was in the concession stand. Line wasn't moving.
Yep.
And he found his open receiver, Cole Beasley, who I said would come back and have a banner day against the team that said they no longer wanted him. And that was Jerry Jones. He made Jerry Jones eat whatever he was doing up there in the box.
Mm-hmm.
And so the Buffalo Bills were the better team on the field yesterday, and they're a better team coming into this game. Dallas Cowboys are struggling in many capacities. And I think all the talk in the media, as well as Jerry Jones' words in the media, has hurt the mentality of these players and the coach, Charlton, because everybody knows that they're on pins and needles. He wouldn't pay his quarterback, so his quarterback can never get comfortable. He's playing for a contract, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent. That's how this season has gone along. The Buffalo Bills, you know, we try to figure out if they're a pretender or a contender. They look like a serious contender.
Yeah.
And I think that they can actually right now challenge the New England Patriots, because I saw a lot of similarities in the Buffalo Bills that I saw in the Baltimore Ravens as far as what they do with their offense. They have a great speed at running back.
Yeah.
Quarterback is a dynamic runner, Charlton. The young receivers get open, and the defense can get after you. And that's what they did to the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, the Cowboys scored on the opening possession. They drove down, and Prescott connected with Garrett for a touchdown. And I mean, it's just a tight end for the touchdown. And I just thought that they would go and roll with that game, but I think you're right. Is there any owner outside of Jerry Jones that has a press conference to tell the media if he likes his coaches or not, or if he likes his players or not? And sometimes, if you want to talk to people, talk to the players and your coaches, but do that behind closed doors, because now they're filling all the airwaves. Ooh, did you hear what Jerry said? Ooh, did you hear what Jerry said about this guy? Did you hear what Jerry said about that guy? At some point in time, he could become like the 12th man on the field for the quiz that they're playing against Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Jerry has had this mentality for a long time, and everyone knows that Jason Garrett is gone now. Jerry just holding his tongue until he's gone. But, Jason Garrett, he won't even get his papers cleaned off his desk before he has another job. I mean, yeah. Atlanta Falcons' job will be open, and he'll be there or someplace else, that he wants to go. He'll have time to pick where he wants to go. But Jerry Jones, when you think about Jerry wants somebody he can have control of. When Jerry had his success early on as the owner of the Dallas Cowboys,
yep.
He had two coaches that came college ranks. He had Jimmy Johnson, who had won a national championship at Miami, and he brought Jimmy Johnson in. Jimmy could, interact with the younger players.
Yeah.
After that, he brought in Barry Switzer, who had won a national championship at Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Jimmy likes to have a coach that doesn't have NFL experience, so he can sort of stay on top of it. He can control the media and things of that nature. And so if he makes a coaching move, he's going to look to the college ranks to bring in a coach. Everyone says it'd be Lincoln Riley out of Oklahoma.
Yeah.
May not be him. Might be Mike Gundy out of Oklahoma State. Could be Urban Meyer, who is sitting out there.
Yeah. He
wants a guy who coached in college because he feels that he knows more than this guy who coached in college. And this is why, if you look at his resume, Jerry Jones' resume in Dallas, every NFL coach that he's hired, he's fired, and they haven't been productive in the program because they want to run it, and Jerry wants to run it.
Yeah, it's too many people in the kitchen, Big C. But, good game by the Buffalo Bills. And then the Falcons and the Saints. The Saints have clinched the NFC South in the 26-18 win over the Falcons. Big C, your thoughts?
I mean, when you look at this game, they went down to New Orleans a couple of weeks ago, and they beat up on the Saints. The Saints did not look like a team that they had been all year long. Drew Brees did not throw a touchdown pass. They sacked him 6 times. It's odd how the tide will change from time to time. When you look at the Saints defense last night, they had Matt Ryan look like a piñata at a Mexican birthday party.
Yeah.
And they
9
beat
sacks.
up on him all night long. They knocked him down 13 times.
Yeah.
They sacked him 9 times.
Yeah.
Actually, it would have been 10, but a penalty was called on one of those sacks.
Yeah.
And so they lost the sack in that game. Matt Ryan did everything he could do last night to help the New Orleans Saints win. And there was a 3-drive stretch where he went out through an interception, came back in, threw another interception, came back in, fumbled the football. He gave that game to the Atlanta Falcons. And everyone wants to say, well, the Falcons have problems on defense. They can't cover anybody. They can't stop anybody. Well, they couldn't have Matt Ryan helping them out last night because he did everything he could to cost the Saints. Cost the Falcons a game just like he did in the Super Bowl with the Patriots.
Yeah, and also for onside kicks, it's like 7% success rate in the NFL. The Falcons got 3 in a row last night, even though one was ruled, called back on a penalty, said that the player was offside. But to get 3 in a row, I've never seen that before. But I want to run down to the next couple days. What's some great football coming up? The Titans are at the Indianapolis Colts. That's a Sunday kickoff on December 1st. At 10 a.m. start, Big C. And just looking for the Colts got to find a way to close out here because they're neck and neck, it seems, with the Houston Texans, who are going to be playing New England. But give me your thoughts on the Titans going into Indianapolis, Big C. Your thoughts?
The Titans are real hot right now. Derrick Henry is running the hell out of the football, and nobody wants to get in that big horse's way. 206-pound tailback coming straight at you. And when you think about Ryan Tannehill, he's playing like he should have played in Miami 5 years ago, Charlton. The light came on with him when he found out he needed to play for a job instead of having a guaranteed job. He took over from Marcus Mariota. The Tennessee Titans have become a complete offense since that point has occurred.
Yeah, they're starting to play real good football, Big C. Another big game, it might be the game of the weekend, and that's the San Francisco 49ers flying across the country and they'll play the Baltimore Ravens in a rematch of the Super Bowl down in New Orleans when the lights went out. That's a Sunday, 10 a.m. kickoff. So the 49ers have an early kickoff. The Ravens have just been rolling. They've beaten the last two opponents by double digits. And now here comes another team from the NFC. Now the Ravens have already knocked Seattle, which is challenging the 49ers for NFC West supremacy, for the NFC West supremacy. They've also just blown out the Rams. And you know, now the 49ers come in. What's going to be any different about this game, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, the defensive line of the San Francisco 49ers, Charlton, the Baltimore Ravens have not seen a defensive line that plays like the San Francisco 49ers defensive line. They can just flat out get after you. They have the athleticism to play against Mr. Jackson, Charlton. Yeah. What they did against the Rams is that they just isolated Aaron Donald. They said, we're going to take away the best defensive player that you have. You can't say that about the San Francisco 49ers defensive line, Charlton. You got to take away all four of them to take away the best defensive player that they have. It's going to be a tough-fought game, Charlton, but also when you look at the Ravens' defense, they have an outstanding defense. They haven't lost a game since they got Marcus Peters from the Los Angeles Rams in that trade, Charlton. He's solidified that secondary, and Jimmy Garoppolo is going to need to have to throw the ball against the Ravens for them to win.
So, Big C, with the 49ers across the country, that obviously is an early game for them. It should be a great defensive battle, and we'll see what happens at the quarterback position. I want to jump into the New York Jets at the Cincinnati Bengals. Will the Bengals get their first win? I don't know. It's a Sunday kickoff, 10 a.m., and the Bengals got to beat somebody. And if you're going to beat someone, you would think it would be the Jets, but the Jets have been playing good football lately, Big C. Your thoughts?
The Jets have been playing outstanding offense. They've averaged 34 points a game in their last three games, so that offense is on time, and the defense has been playing pretty good also. But the Cincinnati Bengals, they're going to restart Andy Dalton. He's coming off the bench. They're going to reinstall him back in his starting role to see if they can find some sparks. See if the Red Rifle will be a little pissed off after collecting splinters for the last month.
Yeah, I don't know if starting is going to help him, Big Z, but we'll see what happens. And then you have the Philadelphia Eagles, they just dropped their last couple of games, and of course when you're playing Seattle and you're also playing New England, a lot of teams are going to lose those games. But the fact that they've done it at home, now they get to leave Philadelphia where the crowd boos them every now and then, and they fly into the Sunshine State to play the Miami Dolphins. It's a 10 a.m. kickoff on Sunday. And will the Dolphins rebound, or will the Eagles get it on the winning track? Big C, your thoughts?
I don't think the Dolphins will have any Fitz magic in this game, Charlton. The Eagles know that they're in a fight right now for the playoffs, that they should have the best team in the NFC East. All they have to do is win out, Charlton, and the Eagles in the playoffs. They got a game against the Cowboys in 3 weeks that they're not looking ahead of the Miami Dolphins to. They'll handle the Dolphins quite easily in this game.
Well, another game for the Redskins. Will they get another win? I doubt it. They have to play at the Carolina Panthers. That's Sunday, 10 a.m. kickoff. The Redskins, they obviously are going to improve, but it's going to start next season. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, when you look at the Panthers, they have struggled as of late. They haven't been that high-flying offense that we saw the first 4 weeks with Josh Allen. They've come down to earth. Everybody has tape on them. But I think he's a little better quarterback going into this game than Dwayne Haskins. Christian McCaffrey will make a huge difference in this game.
Now, I want to get your thoughts on Discount Double Check. Aaron Rodgers, before the 49er game, and they were just beaten up out in San Francisco, Santa Clara. There was so much talk about Aaron Rodgers. This is the guy that's in playoff form. And he's always gotten that reputation. But it's not just him. It's the whole defense. He didn't play any defensive downs when they were blown out by San Francisco. But now to go across the country again, and they're playing the New York Giants, that might be the favorite team to play when you need to pick me up. It's a 10 a.m. kickoff on Sunday, and I want to get your thoughts on who could win that game, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, when you need to get healthy, you need to look on your schedule and see if the New York Giants are one of the teams that are on there. The Green Bay Packers won't have any problems with the Giants. I mean, when you think about Daniel Jones at quarterback, Charlton, they're going to do things to confuse this young man. Even though he started most of the season for the Giants, he's still not NFL proven. What the Packers have to do is go back to running the football. Aaron Jones has been, an anemic running back the last 3 games. They just haven't gotten the ball in his hands, and that's what Aaron Rodgers needs to do. Keep the ball on the ground, set up the running game so his play-action game becomes a little more effective against the Giants.
Yeah, it has to, and I think Aaron Rodgers, obviously, he's going to take the accolades come when you have a Super Bowl championship, but it's been many moons. We'd still love to see him have a solid end of his career. I know he has a couple of years that he can probably play at a high level. I want to look at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We go all the way down to Florida. You have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers taking on the Jacksonville Jaguars. That's a Sunday game, 10 a.m. kickoff. And you never really know what to expect out of both teams because they haven't had the solid play out of the quarterback position. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Nick Foles returning to the Jacksonville Jaguars, Charlton, have not provided the spark in the offense that they thought they would have. Leonard Fournette is closing in on a 1,000-yard season. I think he'll cap that mark this week against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense, Charlton. When I look on the flip side, Jameis Winston has been a turnover machine for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. 20 interceptions on the season versus 22 touchdown passes. And though he possesses the only team in the NFL with 1,000-yard receivers, Evans and Godwin, I think the Tampa Bay in this game put the ball on Jacksonville and come out with their second consecutive win.
It's amazing how many picks he's thrown. If he could just fix that, then he'd be a solid quarterback. This is a team, when we go back to the NFC West, you have the LA Rams at the Arizona Cardinals. Now, Arizona's not a pushover anymore. I know they're going to finish at the bottom part of the NFC West, maybe, because the Rams have not played the way they played over the last couple of years. But they have to decide it on the field. It's a Sunday kickoff, 1:05 p.m. kickoff. And the Rams seem like you have to have a little bit of loss in confidence when you get beaten the way they got beaten at home versus the Ravens. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, when you get professional ball players, Charlton, whether you lose by 1, whether you lose by 31, you lose a game and you move on to the next week because there's nothing you can do. You don't sit there as a professional athlete and sulk about a loss that you have. But they do run into another dynamic quarterback in the desert in Kyler Murray. And you're going to see Arizona Cardinals try to emulate a lot of the things that the Baltimore Ravens did against the Rams. You have a quarterback that's just as quick as Jackson, and now you got to make him run the ball, Charlton, as well as throw. Jared Goff has not thrown a touchdown pass in his last 3 games. That really bothers the Los Angeles Rams, and he's had 5 interceptions during that stretch. Even though he has Cooks and Woods back in the receiving corps, Charlton, the timing wasn't there last week.
No, it wasn't there. What do you think is wrong with Goff? Usually if it's something with their running game, they'll come out and tell you that Gurley's banged up or he has a knee injury. No such thing about Goff. Who do you blame? Is it the offensive line? Is it McVay? Just people read him like a book last year and now there's nothing new he can do to score against them? You can't just get 6 points at home no matter who you're playing against, Big C, your thoughts?
Well, they just haven't been able to punch the ball into the end zone. When you look at Jared Goff, his numbers are there. He's the 3rd leading yardage producer in the NFL as far as quarterbacks go this year. But his receiving corps has just not been healthy. And the inconsistency there, having the timing within the receiving corps, the offensive line is new. I mean, there's a lot of different structure about the Los Angeles Rams this year. And everybody thought just because they were in the Super Bowl that they would duplicate that, Charlton. You can go back 2 years ago. The Philadelphia Eagles were in the Super Bowl.
That's right.
They didn't go back. Go back 3 years ago. The Atlanta Falcons were in the Super Bowl. They didn't get back. The only consistent we have about getting to the Super Bowl is the New England Patriots.
Yeah, I guess the NFL Super Bowl hangover does come into effect, Big C. A game that was a big game before the Raiders went east and played the New York Jets and were blown out in the Meadowlands, Big C. The Raiders are at the Kansas City Chiefs, and that is a team that's expected to win the AFC West. That's a Sunday, 1:25 kickoff. And just give me your feeling on the Raiders have really shown who they were when they went and played the Jets and lost the way they lost. The wins that they had over some teams earlier in the year, maybe that was you could have to call it an upset now. Patrick Mahomes, obviously, when he was injured, the Chiefs struggled a little bit. But if you can get healthy against the Chiefs, it's running against their defense. Their offense, I think they're back. Give me your feeling, will the defense for the Chiefs cost them a liability, Big C, your thoughts?
Well, these teams played earlier in the season, and the Raiders dominated the Chiefs in the first quarter. The Chiefs dominated the Raiders in the second quarter, and it was just a tie after that. But they scored 28 points in the second quarter on the Raiders, but they were not able to score after that. This is one of those games, Charlton. The winner of this game will win the AFC West. And the Chiefs have to come out if they want to win that division, and Patrick Mahomes cannot be sluggish in this game. The Raiders, for them to win, they have to run the young running back, Gordon, that they have, Charlton. They have to run him. He needs 100 yards on the ground for the Raiders to win. Derek Carr, the last 2 games, has struggled at quarterback. He just seems to have lost it in the last 2 games, not putting up any yards. He hasn't thrown for 300 yards combined in his last 2 games. You can't do that and win in the NFL.
This will be the last time that the Kansas City Chiefs will ever play the Oakland Raiders. For now on, it will be the Kansas City Chiefs versus the Las Vegas Raiders. It's amazing. And the Raiders will either win their last game or lose their last game as an Oakland franchise playing at Kansas City, and they've been playing for many, many moons. The Los Angeles Chargers at the Denver Broncos. Denver, just like the Chargers, these are 2 franchises that they're just disappointed in how they played this season, Big C. That's a Sunday kickoff, 1:25 p.m. And the Chargers also will be the last game that they will play. The Broncos coming from the I guess it's called SubHub Center down in Southern California in Carson. They'll be in the new digs in Inglewood next time they play. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, this is a game that the Chargers must win. Anthony Lynn has to find a way to find a spark in his team. Phillip Rivers cannot afford to go out and throw interceptions again this week against Denver. Denver is one of those teams that's still experimenting offensively. They're going to play their second-round draft pick. Luck, the quarterback out of the University of Missouri, he's come off injury reserve. They get Drew Lock, rather, and got him into the lineup, Charlton. So they're going to try to see if they have a quarterback for the future. The John Elway experiment still continues. The defense has been a stalwart most of the year, but they've had problems against the pass.
Yeah, they really have. So congratulations to playing out your season down at Carson, California. Hopefully they'll get more just when they move over to Inglewood. But that game, again, is at Denver. It most likely will be some snow on the ground, so the California teams don't do too well in the snow. Big C, the Patriots are down in Texas, and they're playing the Houston Texans. Deshaun Watson is absolutely amazing quarterback. And then, of course, you always have Tom Brady doing what he does. It's a Sunday kickoff, a 5:20 p.m. kickoff, and that's going to be on NBC Sports. Any way at all that Houston can keep up with this. The Patriots don't score a lot of points, but they don't have to because they don't give up a lot, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, they don't give up a lot of points, Charlton, but the last time these 2 quarterbacks faced each other, it was an absolute shootout in Foxborough. And Deshaun Watson set a couple of rookie records during that time, but this New England Patriots' defense is much improved. Everyone talks about the struggles of the Patriots, and I think the only thing the Patriots look at the end of the day is the W and the L, and they have 10 W's and 1 L on the season, Charlton. They're not disgruntled.
Yeah, that's actually the W and the L. I want to just jump in to what could be a preview of a playoff. In fact, we've seen it before where the Seattle Seahawks ended the playoff drought or a drive for the Minnesota Vikings, and it was ice cold up in Minnesota. Well, on the Monday night, the Vikings will travel to the Great Northwest, and they'll play Russell Wilson and the Seattle Seahawks. It's a 5:15 kickoff on ESPN. Minnesota travels well with their defense. There's something about when the Seattle Seahawks went into New England, not New England, but they went into Philadelphia, and they had an early game, and they played a solid game. Not many people thought they'd win that game. Now they come back home where they've only lost at home. They've lost to the New Orleans Saints at home, and they lost to the Baltimore Ravens at home. They have a defense that can step up and play if Clowney's healthy. Give me your thoughts on the Vikings and Seattle up in the Great Northwest.
I like Minnesota in this game up in Seattle. Minnesota's done the things that they need to win on the road. I think they've gotten over that jinx of your cousin not being able to beat teams with winning records. They show that they're in the playoff hunt and they plan on staying there. Seattle has not been that stalwart at home that they've been on the road. They've given up a lot of points up in Seattle. And if you think of a couple of the games that they just squeaked by, it came on last-minute drives. Minnesota has a passing attack just like Tampa did going up into Seattle, Charlton, where they can score points. The one thing that they have that Tampa didn't have is the league's second leading rusher. And I think Dalvin Cook will make a huge difference in this game.
That's interesting to see. If Russell Wilson can keep that offense rolling the way they've been rolling, and we'll see if the Vikings can go in there and get a win. Looking forward to whatever happens in that. You can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week around the world on the #1 podcast network in the universe, iHeartRadio podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. The apps that I really love are by Google and Alexa, just say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You'll hear from our sponsors. You'll hear welcome to the show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he will do his thing, and I really appreciate the way things are going with Big C Sports. Also, you can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity, Comcast Television, launching on Roku TV, Apple TV, Fire TV, and a lot of smart TVs all over the universe. When we close out today's show, I want to talk a little bit of NBA basketball. I know football is dominating the scene, but we do have a big schedule tonight. After Takey Day, we have the Celtics at the Nets. The Raptors will play at the Orlando Magic. The Hornets will play at the Pistons. The Bucks will play the Cavaliers. The 76ers at the Knicks. Wouldn't it be great if the Knicks and 76ers was must-see basketball? But it hasn't been that way in many, many moons, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, one of the problems with New York is the same problem that Los Angeles had for 6 years, Charlton. You can't go out and draft 19 and 20-year-olds and pass them a multi-million-dollar contract and tell them to behave and to be an adult in two of the most electrifying cities in America.
Yeah.
You look at what the Los Angeles Lakers have done over the last 2 years, is that they've gotten rid of all those young players. They brought in a bunch of veterans.
Yeah.
And these veterans act like veterans because they've been through those battles before. The New York Knicks and Mike Dolan have not learned how to do that, Charlton, is to bring in veteran players and don't sit there and say that you're going to build an organization through the draft. It no longer happens in the NBA. You can't give millions of dollars to a kid and tell them to act like an adult.
Sometimes you can't give it to an adult and have them act like an adult. Golden State Warriors at the Miami Heat. New Orleans Pelicans at the OKC Thunder. The Atlanta Hawks are at the Indiana Pacers. The Utah Jazz will take on the Memphis Grizzlies. And I thought Memphis had the ugliest floor for many, many moons. They've actually changed it, and I like the look of it better. You have the Utah Jazz at the Grizzlies on that newer floor. And the Clippers at the Spurs. What a great team to bring in to San Antonio, Texas to play the Spurs. Coach Pop, of course. And you have those good old boys from Los Angeles now. And I know the Lakers have a better record than the Clippers, but I'm thinking the Clippers might be a better team, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, like I said, it's early in the season when you look at the NBA, and who knows what's good right now. Who knows who's going to be healthy in 3 months when the crunch time comes in the schedule. Always
matters as you get healthy down the stretch, Big C. The Dallas Mavericks and Luka Doncic at the Phoenix Suns. Chicago Bulls at the Portland Trail Blazers. You got to find their stride again. And the Washington Wizards at the LA Lakers in Southern California. So everybody's happy that they had a great Thanksgiving. I'm hoping we pay homage to our military veterans. Even POTUS decided to surprise the military and show up. But I don't know. Everybody has their own opinion about if that's grandstanding or if it's really appreciated, especially when you all the types of ferments. I know I ate a lot of food. German chocolate cake is always great on the menu. Big C, your favorite dessert that you consumed over the holidays, Big C?
Well, as you said, dessert. And dessert is ill within itself, Charlton, whether you're having the German chocolate cake, whether you have the lemon cream pie. There's a wealth of things. The pecan pie. I'm sitting around with the apple pie.
Yep.
I don't even know why I had dinner because dessert was just too much.
Yeah, it's always a lot. But I hope you had a great Thanksgiving. I know a lot of people did. For people that didn't have the chance to spend it with family and loved ones, we hope you had a great one too. Big C, back in the day, there was a man by the name of Drew Boudini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man, and he would always tell Ali, with all you got to use, how can you lose? Rumble, young man, rumble. Big C, what are you looking forward to in the sports universe?
Well, to all the NFL players out there and all the professional athletes, always know that Big Brother's watching. The NFL suspended Arizona Cardinals safety John Shaw today, Charlton, through the 2020 season. So he's suspended the rest of this year and next season for betting on multiple occasions on games, Charlton. That meant that he was betting on Cardinals games as well as other games. And so he's lost his employment for the next 2 years, and within that 2 year span, Charlton, the NFL will move beyond him. So as you're a player and you're not making enough money, if you're going to place a bet, get one of your buddies to place it. Don't do it yourself.
Don't do it yourself. But you can also tell a buddy every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. worldwide. Follow Big C Sports on the Big C Sports Network on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. As we always tell you, there's never, ever an excuse for domestic violence. If you know any man or woman going through that, please pick up the phone and call 911, because no man or woman should ever have to go through that garbage on their own. And as we always tell you on every Big C Sports Show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super big day.